She stood in the center of the church fellowship hall, frozen. Every eye was on her. Every whisper was about her. And she had done nothing wrong. But no one believed her. 3 months earlier, life had been different. Margaret Hayes woke every morning at 5:30. She made her bed with careful corners. She brewed coffee in the same ceramic pot her mother had given her 20 years ago. She sat at the small kitchen table by the window and read her Bible while the sun came up. This was her rhythm. This was her peace. She had lived in the same house for 15 years. A modest 2-bedroom home on Maple Street, with a front porch and a garden she tended every weekend. The neighbors knew her. The mailman greeted her by name. She worked at the county library, shelving books and helping children find stories. Her life was quiet, simple, predictable, and she liked it that way. Every Sunday, Margaret attended Cornerstone Community Church. She had been a member for 12 years. She sang in the choir. She volunteered in the nursery. She baked for the monthly potluck and helped set up chairs for Wednesday night Bible study. People knew her face. They knew her smile. They trusted her. Margaret had never married. She had no children of her own. But she had poured her heart into serving others. She believed that faithfulness in small things mattered. She believed that God saw her, even when no one else did. She did not need recognition. She did not need applause. She only wanted to live a life that honored Him. It started on a Tuesday morning in late September. Margaret arrived at the church office to drop off a box of donated books for the children's ministry. The door was unlocked. She stepped inside, carrying the box in both arms. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. She walked toward the storage room at the end of the hall. The door was open. She set the box down on the shelf and turned to leave. That was when she saw it. The pastor's office door was ajar. And inside, on the desk, was an envelope. A white envelope with no name on it. It was sitting beside an open drawer. Margaret hesitated. She did not mean to look. But something about the scene felt wrong. She stepped closer. The drawer was filled with cash. Neatly stacked bills, bundled with rubber bands. She had never seen so much money in one place before. Her heart began to race. She backed away slowly. She did not touch anything. She did not take anything. She simply left. But someone had seen her. 3 days later, the money was missing. $5,000. Gone. The church treasurer discovered it during a routine check. The drawer had been emptied. The cash, which had been collected for a building fund, was nowhere to be found. Pastor Daniel called an emergency meeting. The elders gathered. They reviewed the security logs. They asked questions. And then someone said her name. Margaret Hayes was in the building that morning. The room went silent. She was alone in the hallway. Another voice added, she had access to the office. Pastor Daniel frowned. He did not want to believe it. But the evidence was circumstantial. Margaret had been there. She had been seen near the office. And no one else had entered the building that morning. The elders agreed to confront her privately. But word spread quickly. By Sunday morning, half the congregation knew. Margaret walked into the church fellowship hall that Sunday with her Bible in hand. She smiled at familiar faces. But no one smiled back. The room felt colder than usual. People turned away when she approached. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. She did not understand. Not yet. After the service, Pastor Daniel asked to speak with her. They sat in a small side room. The elders were there. Their faces were serious. Their voices were low. Margaret, Pastor Daniel began, "We need to ask you about something." Her stomach tightened. There was money missing from my office. $5,000 from the building fund. She blinked. You were in the building that morning. You were seen near my office. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. We're not accusing you, one of the elders said. We're just asking if you saw anything unusual. She shook her head slowly. I dropped off books. That's all. I didn't go into the office. I didn't touch anything. Pastor Daniel leaned forward. Are you certain? Yes, she whispered. I'm certain. But the way they looked at her told her everything. They did not believe her. By the next Sunday, everyone knew. Margaret walked into the sanctuary and felt the weight of 100 stairs. She heard the whispers. Can you believe it? I never would have thought. She seemed so trustworthy. She sat in her usual seat near the back by the window. But this time, no one sat beside her. The row remained empty. She opened her Bible, but the words blurred. Her hands trembled. She wanted to stand up and defend herself. She wanted to shout the truth. But something held her back. A quiet voice inside her heart. Be still. Trust me. So she stayed silent. The days that followed were the hardest of her life. At the library, her coworkers avoided her. At the grocery store, people turned their carts the other direction. At church, she was invisible. No one asked her to sing in the choir anymore. No one invited her to Bible study. No one spoke to her at all. She went home each night and sat in the dark. She cried until her throat ached. She prayed until her knees hurt. God, you know the truth, she whispered. You know I didn't do this. But the silence was deafening. Weeks passed, then months. The first Sunday in October came and went. Margaret sat in the same seat. The pew beside her remained empty. She stood when the congregation stood. She sang when they sang, but her voice felt hollow. During the offering, people avoided looking at her as the basket passed. After the service, she walked to her car alone. No one stopped her. No one said goodbye. The parking lot felt larger than it used to, more empty. The second Sunday was the same, and the third, and the fourth. Each week, she told herself she would not return. Each Saturday night, she lay in bed and wondered if it was time to give up, to find another church, to disappear. But Sunday morning always came, and she always got dressed, and she always drove to Cornerstone, because something inside her refused to run. October turned cold. The leaves fell from the trees in her yard. She raked them alone on Saturday mornings. The church parking lot was covered in orange and red. She walked through them on her way to the side entrance. Inside, the sanctuary smelled like cinnamon candles, but the warmth did not reach her. She sat. She prayed. She listened to the sermon. And she went home. Every Sunday, the same. One Wednesday night, she almost went to Bible study. She parked in the lot. She turned off the engine. She watched people walk inside, laughing and talking. She reached for the door handle, but she could not open it. Her chest felt tight. Her throat burned. She imagined walking in. She imagined the silence that would follow. So she started the car, and she drove home. At night, she prayed differently now. At first, her prayers had been desperate, pleading, God, please fix this. Please show them the truth. But now her prayers were quieter, simpler. I don't understand, but I trust you. Some nights, she did not pray at all. She simply sat in the stillness and waited. By mid-October, doubt crept in. Not doubt in God, but doubt in herself. Had she done something wrong without realizing it? Had she misremembered that morning? Maybe she had touched something. Maybe she had moved something. Maybe she deserved this. The thoughts circled in her mind like vultures. She pushed them away, but they returned, again and again. One Sunday in late October, a woman named Brenda sat 3 rows ahead of her. Brenda had been her friend. They used to have coffee together after church. They used to talk about their weeks, their struggles, their prayers. But Brenda had not spoken to her in weeks. Margaret watched the back of her head during the sermon. She wondered if Brenda missed her. She wondered if anyone did. After the service, Brenda walked past her without looking. Margaret wanted to reach out, to say something, anything. But the words stayed trapped in her throat. November arrived with rain. Cold, steady rain that soaked through her coat as she walked from the parking lot to the church. Inside, the heat was on, but she still felt cold. She still felt alone. The whispers had quieted by now. People no longer stared. They simply ignored her, as if she were not there, as if she had never been there. One night, Margaret knelt beside her bed and broke. Completely. She sobbed until her body shook. She pressed her face into the mattress. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. I can't keep going like this. The silence pressed down on her. Heavy, suffocating. And then, softly, a thought came. Not a voice. Just a knowing. You are not alone. She lifted her head. Her face was wet. Her eyes were swollen. But something inside her shifted. Just a little. She did not feel suddenly better. But she felt held. The next Sunday, she returned to church. She sat in the same seat. She sang the same hymns. She bowed her head during prayer. And this time, the silence did not crush her. It surrounded her, but it did not break her. The first Sunday in November brought frost. The second brought wind. The third brought a sermon on patience. Margaret listened. She wondered if the message was for her, or if it was just coincidence. Either way, she held on to the words. God's timing is not our timing, but it is always perfect. She repeated them to herself that night, and the next, and the next. By mid-November, something began to shift. Not in the people around her, but in her. She stopped waiting for them to believe her. She stopped hoping for an apology. She stopped imagining how it would feel to be vindicated. Instead, she simply existed. She went to work. She went to church. She went home. And in the quiet, she found something she had not expected. Peace. Not happiness. Not relief. But a deep, steady peace that made no sense. She did not understand it, but she accepted it. One Thursday evening, she sat on her front porch wrapped in a blanket. The air was cold. The sky was dark. She watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. She thought about the past months. The pain. The isolation. The waiting. And she realized something. She was still here. Still standing. Still trusting. Not because she was strong, but because God was. The week before Thanksgiving, Margaret woke with a strange feeling. Not hope exactly, but something close to it. She could not explain it. She went about her day as usual, but the air felt different. Lighter somehow. That Sunday, she noticed Pastor Daniel looking tired. His sermon was shorter than usual. His voice was strained. She wondered if he was sick, or if something else weighed on him. She did not know, but she prayed for him anyway. Across town, in his small home office, Pastor Daniel sat alone. It was late. His wife had gone to bed hours ago, but he could not sleep. For weeks, something had been bothering him, a nagging feeling that would not go away. He had reviewed the financial records a dozen times. He had watched the security footage over and over, and every time, the same question rose in his mind. What if we were wrong? He rubbed his eyes. He did not want to doubt his elders. He did not want to question their judgment. But he could not shake the feeling that they had missed something. That he had missed something. On Monday morning, he went to the church early. He locked himself in his office. He pulled out every document related to the missing money. He spread them across his desk. And he started from the beginning. Hours passed. His coffee grew cold. His back ached. But he kept searching. And then, in the corner of one page, he saw it. A timestamp. A small detail he had overlooked before. His heart began to pound. Margaret did not know any of this. She went to work. She came home. She prayed. She waited. The days felt long, but she no longer counted them. She simply moved through them, one at a time. It was a cold morning in late November when the first crack appeared. Pastor Daniel was reviewing old financial records in his office. He was looking for patterns, trying to make sense of the missing money. And then he noticed something. A discrepancy in the logs. A date that did not match. He pulled up the security footage again. He watched it carefully. And there on the screen was a figure. Not Margaret. Someone else. His heart sank. The person in the footage was Jennifer Colton, the church treasurer's assistant. A woman Margaret had known for years. A woman who had always been kind. Always been helpful. Always been trusted. Pastor Daniel sat back in his chair. He did not want to believe it. But the evidence was clear. Jennifer had been in the office that morning, before Margaret arrived. She had access to the drawer. She had taken the money, and she had let Margaret take the blame. Pastor Daniel confronted Jennifer privately. At first, she denied it. But when he showed her the footage, her face crumbled. She confessed through tears. She had been struggling financially. Her husband had lost his job. They were behind on rent. She had seen the money in the drawer and made a terrible choice. She had not meant for Margaret to be accused. But when it happened, she stayed silent. She let the lie grow. And she watched an innocent woman suffer. The truth was revealed on a Sunday morning in December. Pastor Daniel stood before the congregation. His voice was steady, but his eyes were filled with sorrow. He explained what had happened. He named the real thief. He asked for forgiveness on behalf of the church. And then he looked at Margaret. She was sitting in her usual seat, her hands folded in her lap, her face calm. "Margaret," he said, "we owe you an apology. We failed you. We judged you. We turned away from you. And we were wrong." The room was silent. People shifted in their seats. Some looked down. Some wiped their eyes. Margaret stood slowly. She did not speak right away. She simply nodded. And then she said, "I forgive you." In the weeks that followed, people came to her. One by one. They apologized. They cried. They asked for her forgiveness. And she gave it. Every time. Without hesitation. Without bitterness. She did not demand explanations. She did not seek revenge. She simply chose grace. Because that was what God had shown her. Jennifer Colton faced consequences. She was removed from her position. She made restitution to the church. She attended counseling. And Margaret prayed for her. Not out of obligation, but out of genuine compassion. She knew what it was like to be broken, to be desperate, to make mistakes. And she believed in redemption. By the time spring arrived, Margaret's life had returned to a new kind of normal. She sang in the choir again. She volunteered in the nursery. She baked for the potluck. But something had changed. She was different now. Stronger. Quieter. More at peace. She had learned what it meant to trust God in the darkness. To wait when everything inside her wanted to fight. To let Him defend her instead of defending herself. And she had learned that His timing was perfect. Even when it felt slow. Even when it felt silent. One evening, as she sat on her front porch watching the sunset, a young woman from the church approached. Her name was Sarah. She had been one of the ones who had turned away. "Margaret," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" Margaret nodded. "How did you do it? How did you stay silent all that time?" Margaret thought for a moment. Then she said, "I didn't stay silent because I was strong. I stayed silent because I was weak. I didn't have the strength to fight. So I gave it to God. And He fought for me." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I could do that." Margaret smiled. "You can. When the time comes, you can. Because He'll give you the strength you need." Margaret never forgot those months. The isolation. The pain. The waiting. But she also never forgot the lesson. That God's justice does not look like the world's justice. It is not loud. It is not immediate. It is not vengeful. It is quiet. It is patient. It is redemptive. And it always comes. Not always when we want it, but always when we need it. Years later, when people asked her about that time, she would say this: "I could have defended myself. I could have fought back. I could have demanded my name be cleared. But God asked me to wait. And in the waiting, I learned to trust Him in a way I never had before. The truth came out. My name was cleared. But the real miracle wasn't the vindication. It was the peace I found in the silence." She paused, then added, "God doesn't need our help to defend us. He just needs our trust." Margaret Hayes lived the rest of her life with that same quiet faith. She continued to serve. She continued to give. She continued to love. And she never spoke of revenge, only of grace. Because she had experienced both the pain of false accusation and the beauty of divine justice. And she knew, beyond any doubt, that God sees, God knows, and God acts. In His time, in His way, always. The truth does not need to be shouted. It only needs to be lived. And when the time is right, it will speak for itself. Asterisk, asterisk. God's justice is not always loud, but it is always sure. Asterisk, asterisk. And those who wait on Him will never be put to shame.